How to repair your 4-stage air hydraulic jack. If you need to repair your 4-stage air hydraulic jack, start by removing the screws holding the top frame. Remove the top frame. Remove the oil plug and drain the oil reservoir. Loosen the hydraulic tube. Remove the oil hose. Disassemble the air hoses by pushing the small red rings while pulling the hoses. Remove the 2 screws holding the bottom frame. Tilt the bottom frame over the edge of the table to carefully free the hydraulic tube from its fitting, and then remove the bottom frame. Turn the cylinder unit upside down and remove the screws on the cylinder bottom. Note that the screws cannot be reused but must be replaced. Remove the cylinder bottom and lift the cylinder unit out of the cylinder bottom. If you need to change the seals in the cylinder unit, start by cleaning the parts. Fasten the cylinder unit in a vise with alu claws. Use a soft hammer and a mandrel to push the cylinders down and expose the lock ring on the large cylinder. Carefully remove the lock ring using a screwdriver. Repeat until all 3 lock rings have been removed. Drain the cylinder unit of oil and carefully push the cylinders apart using a soft hammer. Remove the seals and O-rings in the large cylinder and the 2 middle cylinders. Place the small cylinder in a vise and push out the piston rod. Loosen the saddle with band spanner and remove it. separate the small cylinder and the piston rod carefully. Before you refit new seals, make sure that everything is clean and without scratches or rust. Place the new seals and O-rings in a bath of PTFE oil and make sure everything is fully coated. Refit the lower O-ring and make sure it fits perfectly. Refit the scraper ring and the upper O-ring. Note that the O-ring goes on top of the scraper ring. Make sure that everything is fitted correctly. Use a mandrel and a hammer to push the seals fully in place. You need to do this at least 3 times to make sure the seals are fully expanded. Refit new seals by repeating the same procedure on the last 3 cylinders. When you are ready to reassemble the cylinder unit, start by applying oil on the piston rod before you refit it in the small cylinder. Make sure the parts stay clean and dry. Put some thread locker on the saddle and refit it on the piston rod. Tighten it using a band spanner. Apply oil on the piston rod and the smallest middle cylinder before pushing them together. Fix the parts in a vise and use a mandrel to push them down and refit a new lock ring. Repeat this with the last 2 lock rings. Use a soft hammer when pushing the large cylinder fully in place. Next step is to refit a new ball and bleeding screw. Turn the cylinder unit over and replace the O-ring on the bottom. Apply a bit of grease. It is necessary to do a run-in of the cylinder assembly so the seals sit in the grooves. We use a special machine for this, but you can raise and lower the cylinders manually instead. Make sure that you pull all the cylinders out and push them back in at least 15 times. Remember to check the hose guide and change the seals in the oil reservoir. Make sure that the air hose in the oil reservoir is adjusted correctly. It needs to be cut in an angle and fixed exactly 17mm above the bracket. Also, make sure that the hose has a fixed loop to prevent backflow. Refit new seals in the oil reservoir and on the reservoir cap. Remember to apply grease. When you are ready to reassemble the jack, start by placing the cylinder assembly on the cylinder bottom. Refit the reservoir cap. Note that the air hose and the cap must be aligned correctly. Turn the unit upside down and refit new screws with a bit of thread locker. Never reuse the old screws. Use a marker pen to mark each screw before you tighten them completely with a torque of 300 Newton. We use a special fixture for this, but you just need to fix the unit securely. Check the pen marks to make sure you did not overlook one. Next step is to refit the bottom frame. Be careful with the hydraulic tube. It needs to be loosely fitted in its bracket before you lift the frame up to level. Tighten the hydraulic tube loosely. Refit the two screws holding the frame and the cylinder bottom together. Make sure to tighten them completely. Tighten the hydraulic tube completely and refit the oil hose. Refit the reduction valve and the vacuum pump. Be certain to push the air hose fully into the fitting. Refill the jack with oil and refit the oil plug. Next step is to bleed the jack through the bleeding screw on the saddle. We use a special fitted joystick to supply air while testing. If you do not have this, just place the jack on the floor and refit the handle hoses and use the buttons on the handle for this. Drive the cylinders fully up and loosen the bleeding screw carefully until only pure oil without air bubbles emerges. Fasten the screw and push the cylinders fully down and repeat the procedure at least 3 times. Finally, check the oil level. Correct oil level is 23 mm under the lower edge of the hole with the cylinders completely lowered. Note that if the jack is spilling oil, typically from the vacuum pump, it is often due to either the oil level being too high or that the jacks has been handled roughly or in a wrong position. Finally, mount the cover.